We would like to start a regular press conference by Foreign Minister Kamikawa. Minister, the floor is yours, ma'am. I have one point to make. From this evening to tomorrow at Ikura Guest House, G7 Foreign Ministerial meeting will be held under Japan's presidency. This is the 5th in person, and for me, this is the 2nd in-person G7 Foreign Ministerial meeting. Japan holds G7 presidency. We have been leading G7 discussions and achieving results to boost and to maintain and strengthen rule-based free and open international order and strengthening international partners' involvement as priorities. After New York meeting in September, within 1 month, international situation saw various changes. In particular, concerning Israel and Palestine situation among G7 countries, we have been collaborating closely. On the 17th of October, G7 Foreign Ministerial telephone meeting was held. We confirmed that we unequivocally condemned the terrorist attacks and that the Gaza Strip humanitarian situation needs requirement, and also we confirmed that we would continue to collaborate among G7 countries. The situation has been changing minute by minute. The tension is escalating day by day. Against this backdrop, we are holding this meeting first based on my visit to Israel, Palestine, and Jordan concerning the Middle East situation among G7 foreign ministers. We would like to have once again in-depth discussions.
Furthermore, a discussion on the Indo-Pacific, which is the most important region, and also the topics of the Ukraine, which we have discussed before in many ways, are also the important topic of the discussion as well, especially amidst the heightening tension in the Middle East. At the G7, we have to show the unity. And we have to once again affirm that there is no change for the commitment for the strict sanction against Russia and the strong support to the Ukraine. It's important that we communicate such message. Furthermore, such stance of the G7 shall be communicated directly to the Ukraine. For that, we are currently coordinating the online dialogue session with Foreign Minister Kuleba of Ukraine. Furthermore, as one of the priority issues of this year, from the standpoint of having the stronger relations with international partners, we are also coordinating the session to have an online dialogue with Central Asian 5 countries at the G7. It is the very first trial to have a dialogue with the Central Asian countries. In the next year, we are planning on having the summit meeting with Central Asian countries. And US, EU, Germany, these other G7 members are also promoting the enhancement of the relations with these countries as well. At this opportunity, on top of the initiatives conducted by each country, the G7 as a whole, to communicate a strong message is very significant. The remaining term as the presidency of the G7 is not only 2 months, but we actually do have 2 months ago. We are planning on fulfilling the responsibility as the presidency until the last minute. And in order to make sure that the G7, we would be able to coordinate against a variety of issues, we are planning on working very hard. With that, I would like to conclude. If you have any question, please mention your name and where you belong to. NHK Igarashi-san, please. My name is Igarashi. Well, I have a question in regards to the foreign ministers meeting, as you mentioned. You are going to have the G7 foreign ministers meeting later on. What are the humanitarian posts? And such discussions, I would like to know as to how you are planning on leading the discussion.
Well, first of all, regarding the humanitarian pause, whether we can reach an agreement, you raised that issue. Regarding the discussion of the foreign ministerial meeting, I would like to refrain from making speculations. That said, at each meeting, October 17th, after G7 foreign ministerial telephone talk. Concerning Israel-Palestine situation, based on the fact that the tension is escalating among G7 foreign ministers, we would like to have once again in-depth discussions from me. The priority is the improvement of the humanitarian situation in Gaza Strip. To that end, humanitarian support and humanitarian pause and ensuring humanitarian access is necessary, including all those issues based on Japan's position. We would like to contribute to the discussions, and we would like to fulfill our presidency role. Next question, please. Kyodo, Katsurada-san, please. Kyodo Tsushin Katsurada. About the Middle East situation, the Israel forces they attacked the Gaza Strip, and there have been a lot of casualties. Secretary General Guterres says that's the violation of international law. You don't have any plan to demand a ceasefire as such violation. About Ukraine's the Russian aggression, then you judge that it's a violation of international reasons, please.
First and foremost, in regards to the evaluation related to the international laws and your question in regards to instant ceasefire, first on acts by the Israeli forces, as Japan, we would like to refrain from making a definitive legal evaluation, but generally speaking, no matter what the situation may be, the basic the rules for the international humanitarian laws shall be abided by. For example, attacks that unnecessarily involve innocent civilians is the violation of the basic principles of the international humanitarian law, which cannot be justified. Against that backdrop, Japan has consistently asked that all parties act in accordance to the international law. To Israel as well, up until now, we had communicated that we unequivocally condemn attacks of the terror by Hamas and others. At the same time, we made a request the importance of the protection of the civilians and to act in accordance with international law, including humanitarian law. The other day, to the Foreign Minister of Israel, I directly communicated the message from my side. Next question to you, from Merujan-san, please. In regards to your second question. So in regards to first and foremost, the improvement of the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip is the highest priority. The situation is aggravating constantly. The general public and children with the future and the women and the seniors are now victimized, for which my heart is hardened. First and foremost, to make sure that the necessary support can be delivered to the people of the region, humanitarian posts, and also enabling of the humanitarian support had been requested to Israel. So we have been conducting a variety of diplomatic efforts. In regards to these points, I directly communicated to Foreign Minister Cohen myself as well, continuously based on the constantly changing the situation. We would like to communicate amongst the related countries, international institutions, for the sake of the calming down of the situation as soon as possible, and to improve the humanitarian situation. We would like to tenaciously act. In regards to your second question, as for the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, Russia has unilaterally invaded Ukraine and violated the sovereignty and territorial integrity. Under the related UN General Assembly, a resolution which Japan supported as well, it is being deemed as something that violates the UN Charter Chapter 224. Is the serious violation of international law that forbids the use of armed forces, as was mentioned by Japan and in G7 and other international society. Another, Mr. Johnson, over to you, please.
Kamikawa met face-to-face with your Israeli and Palestinian counterparts during your weekend trip to the Middle East. This week, you are hosting your G7 counterparts in Tokyo, hosted by Japan. The term presidency comes every 7 years. G7 foreign ministers' meetings under the leadership of Japan occurs at the same time with a period of intense Israeli strikes on Gaza. Approximately 10,000 Palestinians, including nearly 5,000 children, have lost their lives in Gaza in Israeli airstrikes so far. Although Israel declares that it targets terrorists, it's a clear fact that nearly 10,000 innocent civilians lost their lives in the attacks. As Japan, what do you expect from the joint declaration after G7 foreign ministers meeting? As the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Japan, do you plan to call for a ceasefire in Gaza in order to stop the deaths of innocent civilians instead of calling for a humanitarian pause? Thanks.
Regarding your question and concerning the G7 foreign ministerial meeting, coordination has been ongoing among G7 countries to the direction of issuing certain kind of outcome document. It's still being coordinated, so at the moment I'd like to refrain from answering about the specific content. Next question, please. Yomiuri, Kamimura-san. Yomiuri newspaper. At the outset, you mentioned this concerning this G7 foreign ministerial meeting about outreach session with the Central Asian countries. What kind of countries are going to participate together with the gist of the meeting?
At the foreign ministers meeting at this time, from the standpoint of one of the priority issue of this year, from the standpoint of the stronger involvement with international partners, with Central Asian countries, we are planning on having the online session for the dialogue. Japan is planning on having the summit meeting with Central Asian countries in the next year. The US, EU, Germany, and these other G7 members are also promoting the enhancement of the relations with these countries. At this opportunity, on top of the respective initiatives at the G7 as a whole, to communicate the strong message in regards to the enhancement of the relations with the Central Asian countries is significant. Furthermore, under and amidst the heightening tension of the Middle East situation at the G7, we should unify and to show that there is no change to the commitment that we are going to provide a strong support to Ukraine and the strict sanctions against Russia. To communicate that is important, and to directly communicate that message and the stance of the G7 to Ukraine directly. We are also coordinating the session to have the online dialogue with the foreign minister of Ukraine. The next question, please. Pan Orient News, Azahari-san, please.
Thank you, Khaldun Azhari, Pan Orient News. An Israeli defense official reportedly called for the use of nuclear weapons against Gaza. This threat was an admission that Israel has nuclear weapons, and such a statement encouraged Arab and Middle East countries to acquire nuclear weapons for self-defense. Do you condemn Israel for threatening of using nuclear weapons? And do you plan to apply any pressure on Israel to sign the NPT treaty or apply sanctions in the same way you deal with North Korea? Thank you.
まずご質問の
First, regarding the statement by Israeli cabinet member, I'm aware of the report. But Prime Minister Netanyahu, concerning that statement, he mentioned that it is such an outlier statement, not reflecting the reality for the time being, that cabinet minister will not be allowed to participate in the cabinet meeting, as I understand. Israel already signed the CTBT, but not ratified the CTBT. Concerning Japan's position, grasping various opportunities, we have been calling upon countries for the enter into force of the CTBT, asking countries to sign and ratify the CTBT. Concerning your question, I'm aware of that report, but response by Prime Minister Netanyahu, and I'm aware of the response. We would like to conclude the press conference. Thank you.